This presentation seeks to answer the following. What is comprehension? How does it relate to the reader in reading? What strategies do effective readers use to comprehend text? How can teachers facilitate comprehension? Let's begin. There are concrete and abstract notions for any body of knowledge. Use this comparison to distinguish the two. Those things that are abstract exist in description. They are ideals. Those things that are concrete can be seen, felt, and demonstrated. Comprehension is the ability to decipher audiovisual and kinetic cues or clues from the environment for a declarative, procedural, or conditional classification or organization. Effective comprehenders can not only name or identify a concrete or abstract element within a body of knowledge, but they can also identify the function and how it should be used. Additionally, they can validate the reason for choosing to use or not to use a particular schema, object, or construct over another. Our experiences, beliefs, cultures, priorities, preferences, habits, and procedures create little stores of knowledge in our heads that affect how we process information. A schema is one store of knowledge, and schemata is the plural for the word. When we are exposed to something new, these stores of knowledge ignite and begin to make connections. Our brains work hard to link or map the new information to our existing schematic structures. And we use processes like rationale, dissection, construction, evaluation, analysis, distinction, and comparison to establish compatibility and fit. There have been many logical assumptions about the components of reading that have led to many misconceptions, such as the direct correlation between fluency and comprehension. Research shows that they are both important and should not be taught in isolation. However, teachers should not use fluency as a direct indicator for comprehension. As it relates to schemata, reading, and comprehension, a theme is the author's inspiration and purpose for writing. So, reading comprehension occurs when the reader's schemata closely matches the writer's schemata. When this occurs, the writer and the reader agree on shared boundaries and relationships of the main points in the text. As a result, the reader comprehends the text and the writer. All bodies of knowledge, concrete or abstract, have a tiered directional flow. As schemata are developed for these bodies of knowledge, the connections that readers make flow rapidly, moving back and forth and across this spectrum in cognition. But before this can occur, there are foundations that must be laid. In a spectrum such as reading comprehension, this foundation begins left to right, beginning with print concepts and ending with comprehension. Remember, every concept is embedded with subconcepts to be mastered, producing tiers of knowledge. As teachers map the coordinates of a student's current understanding, they should use this information to differentiate instruction. Top-down instruction demands that the students pull from their schemata to create new meaning or new concept. Bottom-up instruction demands that the students learn to dissect the components or elements of a single concept in order to learn its parts. So, what are the characteristics of an effective reader? Effective readers evaluate the words and pictures for clues in order to make predictions or assumptions about what is happening or is going to happen in the story. As effective readers move forward in the text, they use monitoring and questioning strategies to regulate their thought processes. As the story continues, effective readers ask themselves questions about the story that will help evaluate their predictions and reconstruct or update their schemata. These readers use clues from the author's descriptive words to create visual images in their heads, and they use their experiences or schemata to look for hidden messages and implied meanings. Effective readers are aware of their repertoire for strategies, so when the text no longer makes sense, they pinpoint the part of the text where the meaning was lost, identify the reasons for the disconnection, and choose an appropriate strategy to regain the connection. This may mean looking up words and concepts or evaluating syntax. Predicting the author's schemata by identifying and evaluating the theme, structure, and main idea to understand the word and phrase choices and purpose for writing are other attributes of a great reader. One thing teachers can do to aid reading comprehension is to implement small group instruction. Research suggests that teachers give students a pretest of the content to be taught. Address each student personally to inquire about his or her perception of their success on the test. Share the actual scores with the students and discuss any discrepancies that lie between their prediction and the results. You'll also want to talk to each student about the value and application of the strategy for which you're going to teach, including grade improvement. Help the students create a goal statement which indicates commitment and willingness to learn the strategy before you begin. Another thing teachers can do to aid comprehension is to introduce kinetic learning. Research shows that hand movements help students communicate their understanding so that teachers can help them pinpoint their connections and disconnections while they're reading text. CPMs, or comprehension process motions, as described by Block, Paris, Whitley, and Paris, detail a study in which the experimental group outperformed the control group in every measure. For example, as it relates to the main idea, the mean for the experimental group was 79.8 compared to the control group, which was only 52. These motions can be created, adjusted, and implemented with any comprehension strategy. Take a look at this video for Compare and Contrast found at A Novel Life on YouTube.
Compare and contrast. Compare and contrast. What does it mean to compare? It means to find what is the same. Let's see how my shoes are the same. They both have bows on them and they're both black. And they both have straps on them. I listen for the word pair. The word compare. A pair is two things. A pair is two things like two hands. A pair is like two eyes. Let's compare my pair of hands. They both have thumbs. They both have pinkies. When we contrast, we find what is different. This body part is the foot, and you could tell by the toes. This body part is a hand. You can tell by the fingers. So, if I compare these parts, they're both parts of the body. But if I contrast them, this one is a hand, and this one is a foot. A long time ago, there was a man. His name was John Beth. He was an intellectual. He thought of a good way to help people compare and contrast. He thought of this idea. These Venn diagram glasses help me to see what is the same and what is different. Compare and contrast. If they're alike, they go in the middle, and if they're different, they go on the sides. I can compare and contrast lots of things in a story. This story's characters are turtles. In contrast, this story's characters are fish. The characters are the same because they're both animals. I can contrast the setting of these two stories because this one takes place on land and this story's setting is underwater. Compare and contrast. Compare and contrast. If they're alike, they go in the middle, and if they're different, they go on the sides.